Well, hello everybody, this video is a response to a video titled SpaceX Launch Proves Earth is Tiny by FLAT EART Brothers. Obviously, he meant it as a joke, although he still believes the Earth is flat. I just wanted to quickly show him something. This cool game called Kerbal Space Program. You can call it an orbital simulator. And I'll just quickly try and explain to him how orbit works and what would happen if you fly a rocket straight up. It is pretty simple. Don't get me wrong, I'm not a physician or anything like that, but it is common sense, I would say. To be honest, I think people like him recording those videos only do it for views. He doesn't actually believe any of it, but he recognizes that there's a lot of real flat earthers and he's just catering to them. Just waiting for it to load. Obviously, first time using screen capture software, so that might slow it down a little. Let's just bring the audio down. There we go. So let's just start a game. Obviously, this is a fictional solar system or planet system, planetary system, whatever you want to call it, with Kerbal as the Earth analog. So just start new game in sandbox, so that all the parts are unlocked. So first, let's build a quick rocket, and one that would gonna fly straight up. Now for some reason this might not work. Yeah, okay. So what we shall do, let's put something that we all know. Can Apollo capsule on it. Let's put a nice nose cone, and then is that good enough? No, that's way too big. Well, fuel tanks, obviously what it needs is liquid fuel and then liquid oxygen. So liquid fuel and oxidizer. So I need them both for a combustion. That's why obviously here's the rocket goes up and up and up. And unlike jet engines, which use oxygen from the atmosphere, they obviously leave the atmosphere in a rocket, meaning they need to provide the oxygen or the oxidizer. Let's find something that fits. No, that's still too big. Come on. Nope. Okay, guys, so I've decided to use a smaller dimensions. Couldn't find the right fuel tanks for it, so we're just gonna use this. And we see the rocket needs stages and everything, because the higher you go, the more fuel you lose and the more dead weight you have, so that's why rockets are staged. So let us do that as well. Let's just put a fuel tank with a small vacuum optimized engine, and then just put a decoupler, and hopefully let's just get an engine. Let's see if this Reliant kit. Now this engine doesn't have good gimbaling capabilities, which means you can't really steer it well in flight. That's what they use, not wings, but that's what the big rockets use. They don't need wings, they use gimbaling, which gimbaling is the reflection of the engine bell to any side that cause it to change direction. So what we're just gonna do is just put some basic fins to maintain stability in flight. Okay, and let's launch it from the launch pad. Now first we're gonna see what happens if we launch this rocket straight up. So let's put throttle to full and let's launch it. I've got about 3,500 delta V. Delta V is how much speed the rocket can get to, I believe. So say it's 2,800 meters per second delta V, which means that's the speed this rocket can reach until it runs out of fuel. So let's just keep this rocket flying up, continuously up, without going horizontally at all. And we'll see what happens. Now let's also pay attention to how much fuel we're using. That's right here. Because obviously you can reach an orbit like this. You can go straight up and then turn the aircraft or spacecraft horizontally, and eventually you'll reach orbital speed, which will allow you to maintain the orbit. But the reason rockets in real life go horizontally is to not only gain vertical speed to escape the atmosphere, but to also gain horizontal velocity to be able to maintain an orbit. Because what an orbit is you're constantly falling to the ground, but because you're moving so fast, you can't fall. That's the basic way. So let's look at the map, and let's look at the flight path of the rocket when you do it horizontally. When you go vertically up. So as you can see, we're going up. That's the upwards, which is the height it's going to reach before it falls. Now, 70 kilometers in this game is where space starts, where the atmosphere disappears. So say we keep going up and up and up and up and up. You can see the flight path spacecraft's gonna take. It's gonna go really high, but then it's just gonna fall back down because that's its vertical velocity. So it's going up, but eventually it's just gonna fall down. So we've used up this whole tank, and we're gonna reach a height of 549 kilometers above this planet, but we're just gonna fall down. So what we have to do is get horizontal velocity, accelerate in this direction in order to gain enough velocity so that we don't fall back, because we're moving too fast for the spacecraft to fall back down. So let's accelerate to here. So mind you, we've used up all the fuel in this stage, so what we can do is we can ditch the stage. Okay, and then activate the engine. Now, so in order to get into orbit, we have to turn the aircraft sideways. Okay, and then we fire up the engines. So our orbital velocity is only 200 meters per second. So as you can see, we're constantly accelerating sideways. But we're still gonna fall unless we gain enough velocity. But I'm not even sure we'll be able to do it with this tank of fuel, because we spend most of our delta V or our fuel getting high up. But as you can see, we'll still be falling to the ground. Hopefully that lasts. Yeah, we might just get an orbit. If it goes, yeah, there we go. So let's cut the engines. We are in orbit. So the spacecraft is moving Let's have a look. There we go. So the aircraft is moving horizontally, but it's moving so fast. It is constantly, as you can see, it's constantly falling. But the curvature of the Earth or the planet allows it to maintain its orbit. Because imagine this here was a flat planet, flat Kerbal, let's call it flat Kerbal society. Say the planet was this big. Even though we had all this speed, the aircraft or spacecraft would just hit the planet right here. We'd have to keep accelerating in this direction in order to get some sort of an orbit around this disk. I'm not an expert at this game, but it's an easy way of showing how orbital mechanics works. Now, so what I did here is I went up and then horizontal, and it took a lot of fuel to reach the orbit. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna revert. So you will also see the difference in how much fuel we use. I'm not sure, but we might even be able to reach orbit using these tanks alone. I'm not sure though, I'm not an expert. But see, not being an expert, I can clearly understand it. So I'm trying, so I'm gonna slow down a bit, trying to pitch the aircraft west in order to start accelerating horizontally. So not only are we gaining vertical velocity, we're also gaining horizontal velocity, which means if we look at our parabol or the arc, you can see that we are gaining the height, but we're also extending the arc. That's basically what rockets do. That's why you see them going, when you look down from the ground, you may think it's horizontal, but actually isn't completely horizontal because it is going, if you obviously velocity is like anything a vector, isn't it? So imagine this a vector. And obviously I'm going way too fast for the atmosphere. That's why you see this particle effect. So let's cut the engines because we have reached 80 kilometers, which is considered space in this game. Obviously, that's where where the atmosphere ends and space begins. So you can see by going horizontally, we have allowed for the velocity, for the translation. As I don't know whether you can say that or not, but that's what you're doing basically. You're extending the arc at the same time as going up. So if you warp to this point, and look what's happening now. Without the gimbals on the rocket, I'm almost unable to control it. As the only thing that's controlling it is this command pod, which has reaction wheels, which is what it uses to control the direction of the spacecraft. So see, if I try to move it. It's really difficult, but will eventually move. It would be easier if I had the engine on, because it can gimbal and allow me to change direction. Now let's fly horizontal now. Keep flying horizontal, and now apply full throttle, and you can see the arc growing and growing and growing, and we might be able, not yet, but using less fuel than before, we're able to almost completely get into orbit, low Kerbal or low Earth orbit. And now, if you remembered, we almost used up, I think we used up more than three quarters of this tank in the previous flight. So if I warp here, accelerate to that point, then I'll only need just a little bit of speed or a little bit of thrust to get this above 70 kilometers. Again, the aircraft has to be horizontal, spacecraft, and then engines on. Sorry, I haven't turned the engine on. So engine on, applying, there we go. And we are in orbit around this planet. The reason obviously has to be above 70. If you go below 70, then the spacecraft will start touching the atmosphere, which will make it slow down and eventually fall to the ground, unless we apply more thrust. That's what's happening to, say, the International Space Station. It is constantly falling, and every so often they have to do some corrections in order to prevent it from falling down to the Earth. And there we go. Hopefully that will show you how, without wings, you can reach the orbit, and why the spacecraft has to turn somewhat horizontal, but it isn't actually horizontal. Okay. There you go. Take care now.